Hello everyone, how are you going? Welcome to Australian versus American culture, but told by an American, which if nothing else will be very interesting for me to hear because we always get influences from the other way, what Australians think of the USA and Canada and just North America in general, but what about people moving to Australia or even just what they think about it?
The first and most obvious one I can tell you right now from being an American myself and seeing my parents come here and try to culturally fit in was the way that we order. Americans love to go up to the counter and say, I'll take that. I'll take a black coffee with 2 sugars and a little bit of cream. Right. Australia, it's, hi, how are you? I'll take a cappuccino with 2 sugars. It's very conversational, whereas Americans are very, I'll take that. That's it. And I can vouch for that because I used to be that way. And my partner here used to get really mad at me. He used to say, Ash, you need to say, how are you, before you bark your order at them. And I'm like, no, I don't. They're there to work. They're there to take my order. They're not there to have a talk with me.
Oh, that is such a weird one because it does sound, when she said that, it sounds so rude and so confrontational and so many different things. You go, hang on, just take a chill pill. What do you really want? Can't we just have a conversation here? Like you said, it's so conversational instead of you just going, I want this. Like, that's how it really does come across. But I guess it does also make sense, as she was saying. They're there to work. They don't really actually want to be wasting their time having a conversation that they've had a million times already today, especially if they're just under the pump. They just need the order and they need to get back to making coffees or whatever it may be. And so that's where it's a bit of a weird one, and especially because Australia doesn't do tipping it, so it's not even as though they're trying to get more of a tip out of you or anything like that. It's kind of a backwards mentality there. And so look, I can certainly understand both sides of the coin, and even just how if someone was having a bad day or they're in a rush or whatever it may be, how that can change the exact situation. But it's certainly also a good thing to know, in the same way that anyone going to North America or the USA in particular goes, okay, you need to be tipping. It's just kind of the reverse right here.
While we're on the topic of coffee, the names of the coffees here are slightly confusing. I was confused when I first got here because I just love a black coffee with cream and sugar. That does not exist here. It's called a long black with milk. They don't have coffee creamer. Maybe they do. I've never seen it. No. But they use milk, and it's a long black. Whereas in America, it's just a black coffee. So for all you coffee gurus that are coming to Australia, I would recommend a cappuccino because it's really good.
Now look, obviously this one is going to be particularly for the coffee drinkers or even just the coffee connoisseurs, if you want to call them that, but at the same time, I'm not particularly sure if you can be living in the United States and be called a coffee connoisseur. They don't really go hand in hand because the rest of the world drinks real coffee while the US just drinks, or Starbucks is the major thing, let's just put it that way. No, but in reality, I can certainly understand the major difference that it would be. I believe it came from the Italians predominantly moving over in the 60s, 50s, 60s, even 70s into Australia. I mean, that does then make me wonder why the USA has completely different drinks or even just different names for the same drinks. Like, where did it just fork in the road? I would love to know that. And so overall, if you are a coffee drinker and you are planning to come to Australia or even maybe just a smattering of other European countries, it might be worth just taking a minute and looking at what naming schemes they use, because you might even be caught off guard by what you get just served up to you going, this is not what I wanted at all, or perhaps the drink just will straight up not exist whatsoever. And so considering the fact that Australia takes its coffee scene very, very seriously, it is ingrained in part of the culture, you don't really want to be just asking for an entirely different thing.
Another cultural difference is the driving scene. I can vouch for that too because I have driven on both sides of the road in many cities in Australia and America. It is on the opposite side of the road. You have to readjust your mind, completely forget what you know about driving on the right side of the road, and retrain your brain to go to the left, which, mind you, is harder than it sounds. And the driving here is a lot safer. There are speed cameras everywhere. People actually drive the speed limits here. Yeah, you're gonna get that speed demon everywhere you go, but most of the time people do have a tendency to follow the road signs.
Now look, it is totally understandable, but this is probably one of the first things that is going to catch people off guard, because as soon as you step off that plane, it is left side walking, left side stairs, left side driving, whatever it may be. You're just following the same kind of stick to the left rule. And look, of course, the difficulty in which you adapt to the situation is going to vary person to person, just how fluid your brain is in that particular situation. That's fine too. The only problem that I have with what she said is the fact that it's completely different, and that's not entirely true. It's just completely mirrored, but otherwise it's exactly the same. I mean, look, to be fair, the speeding, or more so the lack of speeding in Australia compared to the United States, apparently is an entirely different matter altogether. I have also heard that our speed limits are low, and so it's kind of a double whammy where people go, oh, everyone is just so slow around here because people aren't speeding and the speed limits are lower to start with. So people are like 20, 30 k's difference. It's crazy. It just sounds like people would just be fined and jailed for their entire life. I mean, for goodness sake, even Top Gear did a segment on it. Someone was going down in a Bugatti and like 350 and all they got was a couple of $100 fine. And like they said, you would go to jail for the rest of eternity. And I guess, to be honest, that all just comes down to how harsh is the penalty and how is it even implemented? Because like you said, we have speed cameras. We even have average speed cameras that go over like kilometers and kilometers of road. And if you beat that time, there you go, there's a fine. Let alone the fact that we also have demerit points. And so really, it's just a storm and concoction. It's the evilest brew they can just cook up just to make people slow down.
Another difference I noticed is the grocery stores, what we call the shops here. It's similar in a lot of ways, but different due to the lack of sugary foods. You can find them if you really looked, but they're not in your face. The cereal aisle is much more boring and bland here. It's your basic cereals. You're lucky if you can find Frosted Flakes.
Real cereal.
Or even Milo cereal. Probably the chocolatey cereal. It has a tendency to be a lot healthier. The health standards are high here. The Australian fruit in the summertime, it's very healthy, but at the same time, you can find your normal, like, cookies, bakery, ice cream.
This is just one of those ones that I'm yet to fully comprehend and even just fully experience as well, because I've seen photos of just the aisles and aisles and aisles of things, and even just what people talk about, be it, I don't know, Captain Crunch or Frosted Flakes or cinnamon toast, all these different things that just do not exist in Australia. We have muesli as cereals or whatever it may be, cornflake derivatives, but just not sugar or processed and colourful things. It's not even cereal, it's just dessert for breakfast is what an Australian often thinks of it as. I mean, don't get me wrong, we still do have Fruit Loops and a couple of others, but really it is very, very limited. And for the majority of people that I know, no one really ever was allowed to have that stuff growing up. So in comparison to the USA, when I just hear people just constantly talking about all this cereal and that cereal that they grew up with, just, it's insane. I do not understand how that's just even kind of just the norm or even allowed. Like, how can you be feeding kids just plain sugar and that's it? Like, so limited nutritional value from the get-go. It is ridiculous, but I guess that is what it is. It's just a shame to me.
Another difference is the college lifestyle. A bit different from us American, what we think of our college experiences. American college experiences tend to be made fun of in movies. So it's made to be more of a theatrical, get wasted every night kind of experience. And when I tell Australians that I was in a sorority, for example, that's all they know of sororities is what they're shown in movies. So when I tell them that it's not what it's like in the movies, not one bit, it's quite exaggerated. College experiences are different. The campuses here aren't as glamorous and as much money involved on the campuses. The colleges in America, we get a lot of revenue from sports. So a lot of money goes into upkeeping those universities. Whereas the Australian universities are a bit more research focused. The university lives are different as well. They do party if you live on the campus. There's a small percentage of people that live on campus. Most people do commute from their home. People dress up to go to classes every day. They wear heels. They look nice. And then they go to their class, take their exams, they go home. It's very focused on school only, whereas American college experiences are more of, I go to class, but I also am involved in A, B, C, and D. I'm in sororities. I'm in this organization. But yeah, you could say I was a little bit shocked when I first came here because they are very different.
I mean, look, this is definitely going to be one that I struggle to comprehend because, well, I'm very, 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 very likely that I would never experience what a US college system is going to be like. Like you said, it's a full experience where going to uni in Australia is going, I mean, you go to uni, you go to school, you go to uni, you go to work. It's more like that. It's not your entire life, I guess. I mean, that certainly doesn't mean that people aren't devoting their entire life and all the hours to just researching and being at uni and all that kind of thing, but it's not filled up. There's not all the extracurricular activities unless you are just doing sport, but very few people in the grand scheme of things are going to be involved in sport in any way. And that is because, like she said, in comparison, in college in the USA, there was just so much money from sport. It is utterly outrageous. But in Australia, you just play because you want to play. There is, I don't even know if people really get paid, maybe a couple grand at most if you were just some insane player. But honestly, I've never even heard that being the case because I guess if people are going to be that good, they're going to be playing for other grades as well, not just for the university. And to look, it is certainly no surprise that Hollywood and TV shows and everyone else just exaggerated to the nth degree just to try and draw people and go, wow, look how incredible it is. And then meanwhile, everyone goes, it's just not like that. That just isn't true whatsoever, but still people are drawn into it. And so when you talk to an Australian, or honestly just anyone that isn't from the USA, and they go, wait, what do you mean it's not like that? I mean, that's all we've ever seen. And I can guess that it's a little bit exaggerated. I can't imagine Channing Tatum's on every single university, but at the same time, that's all I've ever seen. And so I guess it really does come down to the fact that there was a word that she used multiple times, and that was experience. And that's what it feels like college in the USA truly is. It's just a full experience. You live there, you work there, you play there. It becomes your entire life instead of just all your time spent at university.
Saying that they are very different in their own good ways. Some ways I preferred the Australian university experience. In some ways I preferred the American college experience. It all depends on what your mind is open to. If you're open to new experiences, you're going to love either. So yeah, those are just a few of the American versus the Australian cultural differences. I could go on for hours. There are so many. Those are just a few of the basic ones I could think of off the top of my head. And so you have a better idea of what to expect if you ever do decide to come visit Down Under.
Look, I guess it truly is just that simple. Like she said, if your mind is open to new experiences and you also do want those experiences, then you should be fine in virtually any single setting. Yes, it may be different, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's a worse experience. And so each are going to have its trade-offs and advantages, and that's just going to be for every country worldwide. And truly, I think that is one of the most saddening things about living in this incredibly diverse world, is the fact that we will never, ever be able to experience everything. But anyway, in saying that, I reckon I am finally going to call it there. So thank you for watching this video. If you did enjoy it, feel free to do the algorithmic things down below. Also, if this is the first video of mine that you're watching, then make sure to go check out my other ones. Also, make sure to go check out the original video down in the description below. Or hey, maybe you even just want to consider subscribing so that you don't miss another one of these in the future. But all in all, have a good one and see ya.